She walks the road where the lights go out, but borders blur and help doesn't come around. On land they promised but never kept. Her name goes missing, her case goes left. They say call the law, but the law doesn't stay. Different badges, different rules, different ways. Paper lines say show us proof, but the proof is buried with the truth. They wrote the laws in rooms we weren't in, closed the doors and blamed our skin. Said justice waits, but it never lands when the crime ain't theirs to understand. Native women, native girls not protected in this world. When the law steps back and the judges stall and the silence answers every call. If the courts won't fight, if the badges won't stand, if the system turns its face again, tell me now, who will stand for them? He crossed the line and he knew the game. Different blood, so no one's to blame. Hands tied by an old ruling. Let him walk free, let his story go cold. They say federal state, not ours today. Pass the file, pass the pain away, while the clock keeps counting the dead and gone. Another sister doesn't make it home. They call it law, but it doesn't defend. It bends for power, breaks for men. Justice delayed is justice denied, and she's been waiting all her life. Native women, native girls not protected in this world. When the law steps back and the judges stall and the silence answers every call. If the courts won't fight, if the badges won't stand, if the system turns its face again, tell me now, who will stand for them? Who answers when the call gets dropped? Who counts the cases the system lost? Who protects her when the law says no? When the badge turns back, where does she go? This ain't broken, it was built this way. Native women, native girls still standing in a stolen world. If the law won't guard, if the courts won't see, then we'll be the voice they tried to bury. If the judges hide, if the badges run, we will stand till justice comes. And when the ones who swore to serve and save turn their backs across the line, they keep saying all the line. If they won't protect her, we will this time. Not invisible, not expendable, not alone. We see you, we hear you, we stand. Voices soft and echoes linking down.
Live on the air, Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, Z.
Real quick, Doc wants to do some kind of a sound check on his soundboard.
Yeah, I just want to see if you guys can hear this or not. Because I'm trying to set up a soundboard.
What
you
are we supposed
should
to
have
hear?
heard a cow mooing.
Nope,
You didn't hear anything at all.
I didn't. Did you guys? Anybody hear a cow? Nope,
Okay.
they did not.
All right.
The
Well,
Southern gal would know. She has cows on her channel.
well, that lets me know what I need to do next. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Doc.
Thank
I mean, we have a
you.
moo cow kitty.
Yep.
But let's get started. Police radio chatter. Fading in and out. Picture this. Your mother. Your own mother has been drinking and she takes your truck keys to go for a drive. You're worried. You're actually terrified. So you do what you're supposed to do. You contact the police. And the officer shows up. He says your mother is safe. Good news, right? But then he just walks into your home. He enters it. He asks if you're alone. You tell him your children are sleeping in the other room, and then everything changes. He threatens to arrest you for child endangerment because you've had a couple of drinks yourself. You beg him not to. You'll lose your job as a school bus driver. You'll lose everything. He takes you outside to his patrol car and he makes you take a breathalyzer test. And he keeps saying, something has to be done over here. Over and over. Something has to be done. And that's when you realize what he means. Now, this isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is real. This happened to a Northern Cheyenne woman named LB. We're going to use her initials on October 30th, 2015, on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Lame Deer, Montana. And the officer who did this, Bureau of Indian Affairs officer Dana Bullcoming, a federal law enforcement officer. And what happened next? 9 years of legal battles. 9 years of the government saying, not our problem, not our responsibility. 9 years of one judge after another failing this woman until finally there's some justice. Welcome to Trial Junkies United Justice After Dark. We welcome Southern Gal True Crime. She's home from her trip to the big city of New York. We have our lovely fella, Give the Mod Some Love, Sins and Secrets Avery, Only Fan. We appreciate you guys coming tonight. And it's Thursday, so that means we're dedicating this episode to our missing and murdered Indigenous persons, our Native brothers and sisters. So, greetings to all of the truth seekers, the trial junkies, and the justice warriors. I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice, and my ride or die doc is riding shotgun as we now predators hunt and the system fails. Doc, you ready to ride?
I'm always ready.
And I appreciate that, darling. This one's important. Tonight, we're going to tell a story. It deserves to be heard, a story society would rather leave buried. But we refuse to let silence be betrayal. This is the story of LB, a Northern Cheyenne woman who called for help and got a predator instead. This is a story of a federal government that looked the other way. This is the story of judges who failed her. And this is the story of why this case isn't the only one. When we stand for the women, girls, boys, and men of the Native and Indigenous community, when will we say enough? So buckle up, because every Thursday, we're Justice After Dark, we're going to honor our Indigenous and Native brothers and sisters. And boy, do we got a story to tell. Hey, Sailor Cap, good to see you, darling. So let's get started. It was October 30th of 2015. Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Lame Deer, Montana. LB's at home with her children. Earlier that evening, she and her mom had gone to a bar outside the reservation because the reservation is a dry one, and they had a few drinks. Nothing unusual. They came home, but then her mother took the truck keys and said she was going for a drive. LB knew her mother had been drinking. She was scared. So she did what any responsible person would do. She called the police. She reported that her mother was driving while intoxicated, and she was trying to keep her mom safe. She was trying to keep others safe. Now, because it's on a reservation, Bureau of Indian Affairs is the one that would be coming, and it was Officer Dana Bull coming, and he responded to her call. Well, he found LB's mother, determined she was safe. Good. Hey, crisis averted, right? But then Bull coming goes to her home. Now think about that. She called for help. Her mother was safe. There was no emergency at her residence, but he goes over there anyway. And then he enters her home without asking. She had been laying down on the couch. She told him her children were asleep in the other room. She mentioned she'd had a couple of drinks earlier in the evening, including half a beer at home. And that's when Officer Bullcoming saw an opportunity. He threatened to call social services and to arrest her for child endangerment because she was intoxicated while in the presence of her children. Now, under the Northern Cheyenne Criminal Code, it is prohibited to be drunk within the exterior boundaries of the reservation. Exterior. She was on the reservation in her home. LB pleaded with him, pleaded. She begged him not to arrest her. If he did, she would lose her job as the school bus driver, her livelihood, her ability to support her children, everything. Bull Cumming took her outside to his patrol car, made her take a breathalyzer test, and the results showed a blood alcohol content of 0.13 or 0.136. And then he kept saying it over and over. Something has to be done. Something has to be done. LB got the impression that he didn't want to arrest her, so she asked him desperately, trying to understand, by something needs to be done, do you mean sex? And he said yes. In So just let it sink in for a moment. A law enforcement officer, a man with a badge and a gun, a man with the power to take her children away, to destroy her life with a single arrest, and he used that power, not to protect and serve, but to coerce a vulnerable woman into sex. And this is what we call sexual assault by coercion. Because LB believed, and any reasonable person would feel, that her only choices were she was going to go to jail or have sex with Officer Bullcoming. Hey, Katrina, glad you made it, sweetheart. So they had unprotected sexual intercourse in her home, and then he left. LB became pregnant. She gave birth to a child. The living proof of what this officer did to her. And this was the start, because then the legal battles start. December of 2017, because it took her a bit to ever tell anybody, but of 2017, Dana Bullcoming pleaded guilty in federal court, not to SAing her. No, he wasn't going to do that. They gave him a plea deal. The government agreed not to prosecute him for SA. Instead, he pleaded guilty to deprivation of rights under color of law. That's it. Prosecutors acknowledged that he had coerced a woman into sexual intercourse with him under the threat of arrest if she refused. The facts were right there in black and white. She had a child. On December 19th of 2017, he appeared before the U.S. Magistrate Judge Timothy Cavan in Billings and entered his guilty plea. He was sentenced to prison for a whole 3 years. That's it, 3 years.
Hmm.
But here's the thing. LB wasn't just fighting for his criminal conviction. She was fighting for accountability. She was fighting for the United States government to admit that it was responsible for what its officer did to her. In April of 2018, LB filed a lawsuit under the Federal Tort Claims Act, the FTCA, and this law permits individuals to sue the federal government for the wrongful acts of its employees. But there's a catch. The government is only liable if the employee was acting within the scope of employment. LB argued that when Officer Bullcoming used his authority as an on duty officer to assault her, he was acting within the scope of his employment because he couldn't have done what he did without that badge, without that uniform, and without the threat of arrest hanging over her head. The government's response? Guess what? Not our problem. They argued that Bullcoming was not acting within the scope of his employment when he essayed her. They said he was acting for his own personal reasons, that his actions were wholly motivated by purposes entirely personal to him. So let me translate for you. Our officer used his badge to threaten a woman, used his authority to coerce her into sex, got her pregnant, but it's not our fault. He was doing that for himself. And you know what's even more infuriating? That argument worked at first, you guys. It did. Hey, Julie's guitar, thanks for coming. So let's go and find out about the judge. She went before Judge Waters, and this came she's a U.S. District Judge at the James F. Batten United States Courthouse in Billings, Montana. Oh, yes, I forgot to put that up there. We're in Montana, folks. You know how I love me some Montana when they're doing naughty things.
Which is a lot of the time.
Yeah, when it
Yeah.
comes to our brothers and sisters that are Native and Indigenous, they just can't
Mhm.
get their act together. It's sad. So, this is Judge Waters, and she was appointed in 2013 and was the first woman to serve as a federal judge in Montana. She was raised in Billings, an undergraduate degree from Eastern Montana College. In 1980, she received her law degree from the University of Montana in 88. She served as a Yellowstone County deputy attorney from 89 to 95 and is a judge on Montana's 13th Judicial District Court from 98 to 2013. So on paper, hey, she sounds great. Southern gal, you're right. Not our circus, not our monkeys. Only the
Mhm.
monkey did belong to them. Um, but here's what you need to know about this judge. This isn't the only case where she's made decisions that have hurt Native Americans seeking justice. In 2023, when she dismissed LB's lawsuit, she ruled that the federal government was not liable for Officer Bullcoming's SA. She said he was acting for personal reasons, not government business. She essentially said, not the government's problem. Now, let me ask you, if this was Susie Homemaker in Billings and a federal officer assaulted her like this, what do you think would happen, Doc?
Um, well, first he would lose his job, then he would go to
Mhm.
prison.
For a
Um,
long time.
yeah, for a long, long time.
Yeah. But unfortunately, LB wasn't Susie Homemaker
Nope.
living in Billings.
Wow.
She was a Native woman living on the reservation. So that's how we get here. Now, the Native and Indigenous advocacy groups, they were outraged. They had every right to be. The organizations like the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, they were supporting LB and they argued that Judge Waters' reasoning was just flawed. It was insensitive to the realities of sexual violence and abuse of power in Indian country. And you know what? They were right. In 2024, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals actually did something extraordinary. And this is interesting. Hey, Miss Kayla. So glad you're here, darling. Fala, Kayla's here. Okay. They didn't just reverse Judge Waters, you guys. They removed her from the case entirely. They ordered a new judge to be assigned, and that's how serious her errors were. The Ninth Circuit found her reasoning flawed and said the case needed to be reassigned because of the nature of her decision making. But this wasn't Judge Waters' only controversial ruling involved uh, regarding our Native American brothers and sisters. There's a case, the United States versus Cooley. Now, this case is about the limits of tribal police authority over non natives on reservations. In this 2017 case, Judge Waters, it's two T's, Watters, ruled that evidence from tribal officers' stops and search of a non native driver was inadmissible because the officer lacked authority since the driver wasn't identified as native. These cases address significant legal questions concerning tribal sovereignty, federal responsibility, and the powers of tribal law enforcement. And here's what makes this even more troubling. Her decision has been perceived as disadvantaging Native individuals seeking justice against the federal government. There's been multiple cases, multiple reversals, multiple criticisms from tribal advocates. Now, in July, Judge Waters announced she was retiring to a senior status effective June 8th of 2026. So we might think, what's that mean? It just means she's going to take a reduced workload, but remain eligible to hear federal cases. And I have to ask, how many more decisions will she make that impact that to the Native communities? How much more damage can she do? I mean, think about that. Now, before she was dismissed from this case, there was a critical development that did occur in August 2021. And that's when the Circuit Court of Appeals did something really unusual, you guys. They certified a question to the Montana Supreme Court. And under the federal courts, they have to apply state law in this case, Montana law, to determine whether an employee was acting within the scope of employment. But Montana's Supreme Court had never actually addressed this specific question, which sounds like a bunch of semantics to me. So, do law enforcement officers act within the scope of their employment when they use their authority as on-duty officers to SA members of the public? Think about that question. They really had to think about it because it gets to the heart of something profound here. That the Ninth Circuit panel consisted of circuit judges Danny J. Boggs, Marcia S. Berzon, and Mary H. Merganey. I don't know. They noted that other states had already addressed the question. In California, Mary M. versus the city of Los Angeles in 1991. You see a moo?
There's a moo sighting.
Yay, we got a moo sighting. The California Supreme Court ruled that the scope of a police officer's employment must be distinguished from other types of employment because of the considerable power and authority that police officers possess. When an officer uses his authority to commit SA, it's connected to employment. In Louisiana, Applewhite versus the city of Baton Rouge, 1979, they said yes. As that court elegantly stated, a police officer is a public servant, given considerable public trust and authority. Where such officers commit excesses, their employers are held responsible for their actions, even those actions may be somewhat removed from their usual duties. This is unquestionably the case because of the position of such officers in our society. It's not like they're going to say, hey, here's your job description, and on line 5, you get to SA. Please. Now, the Ninth Circuit also referenced Montana's own case law, In Brendan versus the City of Billings of 2020, the Montana Supreme Court explained that even if not authorized by the employer and itself not motivated by any intent or purpose to serve the employer, an employee's tutorious conduct may still fall within the scope of employment so long as it is incidental to or closely intermingled with authorized conduct. But Montana had never explicitly said that about law enforcement and SA. So the Ninth Circuit Court asked them to decide, and here's what makes this even more critical. They pointed out something devastating. Under Montana law, if this had been a state or a local police officer, LB might have had a remedy under something called the non-delegable duty doctrine. Montana adopted this doctrine in Paul versus Park County in 2009. And this doctrine can hold employees liable even when employees act outside the scope of employment. So if the employer had a duty to protect the public from harm, there you go. However, the FTCA doesn't permit the non-delegable duty doctrine. The federal government's sovereign immunity waiver is narrower. So if the state police officer essays someone, the state might be liable under the non-delegable duty doctrine. But if a BI officer essays someone, the federal government says, not our problem. So that's really injustice, the only way around. And I know some, go ahead, Doc.
No, I just want to agree with that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And I know some of this stuff is boring, but you have to get down to what the laws are and what some of these cases that they can hold up, and you have to connect them. And it's really important, especially for our Native brothers and sisters, to know what these cases say so that they can apply them and get some justice. And so a Montana citizen who is SA'd by a state, county, or municipal officer might get justice. But that citizen, especially one on a reservation where the BIA officers patrol, he's a federal officer who SAs her. They might get nothing. So as this Ninth Circuit noted, this has a disproportionate effect on Montana's indigenous population, who are more likely to interact with federal rather than state or local law enforcement. Like, no duh. I mean, let it sink in. It's crazy. The people who most need protection, are Native Americans living on the reservation, have the least protection under federal law. The Ninth Circuit certification order was issued on August 6th of 2021. The case number was 20-35514. They respectfully asked the Montana Supreme Court to answer this crucial question under Montana Rule of Appellate Procedure 15. And now we get to the fun part, because then they went to a different judge, because we got rid of Judge Waters, who was a pain, and they got a new judge who was assigned U.S. District Judge Donald W. Moley, I think, Molloi. Mole? I don't know.
Malay.
Donald, Judge Donald. That's what we're going with. And trust me, he's had a few issues himself. But so at the Billings Courthouse in February of 2025, 9 years after this happened to her, Judge Donald here issued his ruling. And here's what LB told the federal court in her own words. This is her during her testimony, you guys. She said Bull Cumming told her to take a breath test for alcohol, and then he told her she could go to jail, that she could lose her job, and that she could lose her children. And we know he repeatedly kept telling her something needed to be done. But this was the exchange. She said, I said like sex. He said yes. A law enforcement officer responding to a call for help threatened to take away a mother's children unless she has sex with him. LB said, I just did it. You do what they tell you. He was saying something had to be done. He said he would call social services to take my kids away. Her attorney asked her directly, So you had an understanding of your choice. Your kids could be taken away, or you had to have sex with him. Which did you choose? Having sex with him. It's not something I wanted to do. When asked if she perceived what happened as fun or as punishment, LB said something that should break all of our hearts. She said it felt like I was being punished, but I didn't know why. She wasn't being punished, you guys. She was being victimized.
Mm.
She was being essayed by someone who held all the power, a police officer. And trust me, if I could have found a picture of him, it would have gone up here, but I could not. They have scrubbed him from the internet. Um, so, and he made good on every single threat he made. It took her a month to work up the courage to report what happened. A month of carrying this trauma alone. And why? These are her words. I was scared because he was a cop. How do you report a cop to a cop? They stick up for each other. And I thought they wouldn't believe me because it's my word against his. How do you report a cop to a cop? You know? And that's a good question. And that's the question that keeps victims silent across Indian country and in other places too, for other victims, but especially in Indian country, where law enforcement's failures are already epidemic. And even after she reported it, she wasn't believed at first, you guys. FBI agents came to the hospital the day after she gave birth to take a blood test to prove Bull Cummings' paternity. The day after giving birth, going through having a child, they made this woman who had just delivered a baby that was conceived through SA prove that this man was the father. Think of what psychologically that had to do to her. And what makes this even more devastating, during depositions, Bull Cumming admitted he had had sex with at least 3 other women while on duty and may have had sexual contact with as many as a dozen women. A dozen women. And the BIA never investigated because they claimed the victims never reported it. But LB said, how do you report a cop to a cop?
Yeah, that doesn't. It doesn't even sound logical that they would try and say anything bad about a cop. I mean, that's to another cop.
And to this powerful testimony about the systematic failure, just think, until we answer that question, until we actually have real accountability and real protection for Indigenous women, cases like LB's will continue to happen, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
But don't just take my word for it about the system protecting its own. Listen to what happened when a former FBI agent was asked to be part of this case. Special Agent John Tilling on the stand, someone who investigated this case, testified about his own moral crisis when asked to help defend the government. I was disgusted with the case, and I didn't want to get involved defending a SAer. We know what word they're using, people, but we
Mm-hmm.
can't say it. I made it clear that it was difficult and I didn't like it. Government attorneys told him he wasn't defending an SAer, he was defending the federal government. Think about that. You're not defending him, you're defending us. But Tilling knew better. I said, I don't like cops who SA women, and I wanted no part of it. And that was the first time I went against the government. I have always prided myself on being a very loyal agent. So here's a career FBI agent, someone who always prided himself on loyalty to the government, but he drew a line in the sand. And what did he say about what he saw on the Northern Cheyenne reservation? I believe it's a pattern to protect one another, to cover, to protect and to cover. Now, meanwhile, the BIA special agent in charge, Lenora Noice, Nioce. Lenora, hello, we want you out here. We want to give you what your words were because they were just so kind and so thoughtful. Testified that what Bullcoming did was never authorized by the BIA policy. It was a crime, she said. She disputed that SA or abusive behavior was condoned by the BIA or prevalent on reservations. Okay, where have you been working, honey? But here's where it gets interesting. LBA's attorneys pointed out that every single call for service is supposed to generate a report. Okay? You get a call out to go to a house, you do your report, right? That's easy. Hey, Pammy. So why didn't Bullcoming file one that night that he SA'd LB? Lenora's answer, low budgets, frequent staff openings, report writings get backlogged or doesn't get completed.
Okay.
Yeah. So a police officer responds to a call and there's no report, no documentation, no paper trail, and the explanation is we're too understaffed to do our jobs properly. Ugh. I mean, where do you go with that?
I don't know. I'm just absolutely dumbfounded that
I
they would say such a thing when they knew what happened. So
and they're saying it under in court
yeah,
under oath.
yeah.
I mean, Lord have mercy.
There's like they're not even trying to hide it.
It's like, why did lightning not strike?
Yep.
Um, hey there, Simi Sharp. So glad you made it, darling. So, no training, no supervision, no accountability. When asked about training and resources for SA, about what kind of supervision officers receive, not a single government witness could testify to any specific training beyond basic law enforcement training. No specialized training on SA, no specific supervision protocols, nothing. Now remember, this man has admitted, the scumbucket has admitted during depositions that he had sex with at least 3 other women while on duty and may have actually been as many as a dozen. Because these kind of dipsticks, they can't do math. So LB's attorney was John Heenan, and he was great. He asked the obvious question. If it came out after he was an employee because of this, it meant that the BIA knew that there may be a dozen or so others. Why not investigate them? So this is what they said, and I want you to listen because this illustrates the bureaucracy that run around. Let's pretend our heads are in the sand. Lenora, and Lenora, we're talking to you. There was no way to discipline him because he was no longer an officer. So
What's that got to
nobody's
do with
looking.
anything?
Yeah, doesn't mean he can't go to jail for those assaults.
Well, yeah.
So nobody's looking into it. She goes, again, that would be the FBI. Heenan said, would it preclude the BIA from making further inquiry? Lenora, it would be a conflict of interest and it's a criminal matter. And that would belong to the FBI. So her attorney asked, how would the FBI know if the BIA didn't report it? And guess what we heard, Doc?
Crickets.
Yep, silence. Because that's the question that breaks the whole charade wide open, isn't it? The BIA says they can't investigate because it's the FBI's job. But how would the FBI know they need to investigate if the BIA doesn't report it? And the victims, the potentially dozen other women, they're not reporting because, as LB said, how do you report a cop to a cop? And let's be honest, she ended up with a child, so he couldn't deny what he did to her because there was a child. So, as we connect the dots, no report was filed that night of her assault. Officers received no specialized training on sexual misconduct. There's no meaningful supervision when misconduct is discovered. Agencies pointing fingers at each other, FBI, BIA. Victims don't report because they know the system protects its own. And if an FBI agent who actually investigated the case, he said there's a pattern to protect one another and to cover. So this isn't a failure of the system. That's the system, you guys. Um, okay, Ben says, and that's like the reason we have special prosecutions as well. That's not exactly abnormal. Prosecutors know how to deal with this kind of stuff if they actually care. Amen, Ben. You're right. And this really needed a special prosecutor in here to, like, take names and kick some bums around.
Mm-hmm.
So working is designed to protect the officers, not the Indigenous women they're supposed to serve. So LB fought for 7 years to hold someone, anybody accountable. In 2025, in February of this year, now this happened back in 2015, you guys. 2025, so we're talking 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Donald here, Maloney or whatever his name is, Moley, I don't know. She won a $1.6 million judgment. Of course, we know she hasn't seen it yet, and I hope she does get it. And she said that she's going to use it to raise her child, you know? So the federal government is going to use taxpayers' money to argue in court that they bear no responsibility for what their officer did while on duty, in uniform, wielding the power they gave him. And somewhere out there, there may be dozens of other women who were victimized by the same officer. Women whose cases will never be investigated, whose stories will never be heard because the system that was supposed to protect them is too busy protecting itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, because
Katrina,
you can guarantee
yeah.
that it wasn't just her. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And poor little dipstick, he can't math. Maybe 3, maybe a dozen, I don't know. Maybe even more, you know? So, remember that every predator, every abuser, every killer out there depends on silence, and we just can't give it to them. And LB, we believe you, and we're not gonna let your story be forgotten because this was horrid. This was terrible. And Randy Tanner, who led the U.S. Attorney's defense of the case, when they were summing it up, because they went to the Pioneer Courthouse for this, but he said the question is whether the BIA was responsible. But SA never served his employer, the BIA. He admitted he had a crush on her before because I guess he lived close to the reservation and knew of her. None of that gave him license, but it gave rise to the assault. And certainly the US is not defending that he had sex with other women while on duty, but it's a departure from his normal duties or the scope of his employment. It is a reprehensible and serious act. I don't
boy,
know how this dude looks in the mirror.
that was quite the speech.
I know. It's like what on his employment sheet on, page 10, section 5, chapter 10, it doesn't say you can essay people
Yeah.
while on duty. Please. And her attorney, in rebuttal at the closing, he argued to the judge that if the government was not found to have some liability here for this guy's actions, it could have implications for other victims. that means that victims here have no recourse. He said if he were off duty, he wouldn't be here, but he did it while on duty. The federal government was found liable. Thank goodness. We just hope she gets what she deserves, that she gets the money, because that's not going to take away the damage and the scars and the trauma. And that's why we're using initials, because she does have a child, and we want to protect the child also. But it was his use of authority as an officer to commit the assault, not some independent act. I mean, I don't know how that prosecutor Tanner could look at himself in the mirror if he practiced his lines before he went to court that day, because I wouldn't have been able to have got him out. I really wouldn't have.
An independent act. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's like, hey, it was the badge and the uniform that made this possible.
Yeah.
It was the threat of her being arrested, or it wouldn't have happened. It's like, come on, people. This would have never happened if he hadn't had those things. She would have never looked at the man twice. All those years. Think about that. 10 years this poor woman has fought this. And yeah, he did go to jail, but for 3 years, so he's out.
Do we know, did he actually serve 3 years, or did he get out
I'm not
early?
sure. I couldn't find that information.
Hmm.
See, I couldn't
Okay.
even find his picture.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
looked. I wanted to put him up there because he deserves to be famous. I mean, you're gonna do that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're right, Ben. A decade of fighting for
Mm.
her rights not to have been SA'd in her home. Because he should have never even been there. Once he found the mother, there was no reason to go to her house. I mean, that was the whole thing. But he did, because he saw an opportunity. And, this isn't the only one. Hey, Frank, this is not the only case. Sadly, there are more. And some of them, let me see, I have a sheet of paper here. Let's see. They have an unnamed BIA manager who was sexually harassing, female subordinates. He ended up leaving the job before anything was done. Another BIA employee had unwanted contact and had a pattern of sexual harassment and coercion. A jail sergeant in Montana, BIA, unnamed, forced sexual contact with female inmates. And the Department of Justice declined to file the charges. A BIA juvenile detention staff member in Arizona was caught on camera groping Native teen girls. He was fired, no federal indictment. Bob Darcy was a BIE staff member. Now, BIE is Bureau of Indian Education. And he resigned due to sexual misconduct with multiple Native teen girls. Another BIA officer in the Navajo region, which would be down in the West, traded leniency for SA acts. Internal Affairs confirmed the serious misconduct, but he resigned before charges could be filed. Now, these were teen girls, so technically that's a pedophile. And I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to say that word. I'm sorry.
I don't
Um,
understand. How do you resign before charges can be made? I mean, that's, charges can be made.
yeah.
This guy needs to be found,
Yeah.
because he most
Um,
likely,
yeah.
these guys, they just left their job, and they took their nastiness somewhere else.
Exactly. And I'm sorry I said the P word, so we will call him a child creeper.
Mm-hmm.
He's a child creeper. There was another BI employee that was sending sexually explicit messages to people. Another officer in Oklahoma area has multiple accusations of coercing SAA acts during stops and domestic responses. So, in other words, when a woman's having a domestic issue, and I guess they get the guy away, he's hitting on him. Yeah, he's a winner chicken dinner. There's another BIE teacher
Well,
in New Mexico who was grooming and SAing Native students. That is a child creeper. He needs to go away. Another BIE school counselor in Arizona solicited contact with Native female students. Can't find a case. A BIE dormitory worker from the Southeast region repeatedly assaulted Native boys during the nights that he was supervising. Yeah. And we hear crickets. Another BI officer in the Navajo region was coercing sexual acts during traffic stops. Internal Affairs confirmed at least one complaint, but no indictment. Now, Darren Boaney, the BIA correctional officer, he actually pled guilty to SA of an inmate in federal custody. So technically, some woman that is in federal custody that can't get away from this man, he assaults her. He actually did get 14 years in 2024. And he did that while he was transporting her. Yeah. And then, like I said, we know Mr. Dipstick, he only got 3 years. And then there's another Clayton Thomas, a BIE school employee of the North Dakota, South Dakota region, who had assaulted multiple students in a dormitory, and he was convicted. And I think that's an older case. There's another BIE teacher, Southwest, produced explicit photos of Native minors at boarding schools. And recently, Merle Delay, a BIA officer of Northern Cheyenne Reservation, was charged in federal court in 2025 with SAing a 15-year-old North Cheyenne girl and faces civil suits for excessive force, breaking the teenager's orbital bone by her eye, and SAing and banned from the reservation by the tribal council in 2024. So these are just a few that have been reported, but no conduct has been taken of them. Yeah, some of them, Fala, there's limited information. So I was getting what I could. There were a few that were recent. I was able to mention the dates, but some of them we don't know. Some of these are things that the people are sharing on Facebook and letting other Native advocates know what is happening. You know, so that's that's why a lot of them didn't have names with them, because without any documentation, the ones that were documented, I could give a name. The others, I couldn't. So that's why we did it that way. But that's just to show that these are the people that are supposed to be on the reservations helping protect the women and children, but they're predators, they're creepers. Now, that doesn't mean all BIA agents are. We don't put everybody in one bucket. There are the good ones. And when you find one and have a good story, send it in. I will shout their name and talk about it.
so
But
in the case of that one creeper, the
yeah,
the tribal authorities wouldn't prosecute. They just basically slapped him on the hand.
sometimes that's what they do, and sometimes it's the feds, because a lot of these crimes would also fall under federal jurisdiction. So, and
Right.
that's part of the problem. You have federal jurisdiction, you have tribal jurisdiction. You play the
Mm,
jurisdictional bingo.
yeah.
Who's in charge? and everybody blames somebody else, just like the BIA saying, well, that's the FBI's, but the FBI doesn't know because you're not telling them. So, like, please, people. Hey, therapists, but the people that are suffering are the women and children. And there are men being essayed. I'm not saying there aren't, but men are the least likely to ever come forward. So we have to think about what this means for the other victims. How many of the Native women and children have been assaulted by these officers and never came forward? Because they saw how the system treated LB's case, and some of them are like, I can't do that. I can't go through that. And, those other cases, that keeps me up at night thinking about these poor women and children and what they're going through because it's an epidemic. And I'm not throwing that word around lightly, you guys, because when we look at the statistics, 4 and 5 Native and Indigenous women and Alaskan Native women, 84.3% have experienced violence in their lifetime. 83.4%. And these stats are old. It's hard to get current data. A lot of this is from like 2016, 2020. More than half of Native women, 56.1%, have experienced sexual violence. Non-Native perpetrators, they say, victimize 96% of women, of the Native women who experience sexual violence. But there's also Native men that are doing this. I mean, but they don't even give the statistics for that. Native women experience violent crime at a rate more than double the rate of other American women, according to National Crime Information. In 2016, there were 5,712 reports of missing American, Indian, and Alaskan Native women and girls. But the U.S. Department of Justice Federal Missing Persons Database only logged 116 of those cases. Let that sink in. 5,712 are missing, but you're only reporting 116. Where are the rest of them? And also, where did the database go? Because of the stupid administration doing this DEI thing, they actually have taken down the database for Native and Indigenous people. Think about that. From the Urban Indian Health Institute's report on the MMIP or MMIW, they identified 506 unique cases of women and girls across 71 urban areas in the US. But that number is much higher. This is underreporting, and there are data gaps. The CDC report that deletion is the third leading cause of death among Native and Indigenous women and men and Alaskan Natives between the ages of 10 and 24. The fifth leading cause of death for Native women between the ages of 25 and 34 from the Indian Law Resource. 1 in 3 Native women will be SA'd in their lifetime. 1 in 3. Look at the numbers. On some reservations, Native women are deleted at a rate of more than 10 times the national average. And here's the thing, you guys. Law enforcement officers are supposed to protect these women. But too often, they can be the perpetrators. Because of that power dynamic. There's access, there's the knowledge that on reservations, federal jurisdiction creates gaps. Predators can exploit it. Just like the child creepers will go into the areas where the children are, these kind of perverted deviants understand the jurisdictional issues, and that's why they go after these women. LB's case exposed systematic failures. It exposed how the federal government can use legal technicalities to avoid responsibility. It exposed how judges can fail the victims with bad rulings. It exposed how long and how hard survivors have to fight just to be heard. But it also shows us something else. It can be done. Justice can be won. It might take years and it takes appeals, but advocacy organizations stand up and say, this is wrong. It takes survivors like LB who refuse to be silenced. But the question we're going to ask is, should it be this difficult? Should survivors have to fight for 9 years?
Oh,
Should
I
it
got
take
the answer for that.
what would that be, Doc?
Wait, let's see. No.
Exactly. And the appellate court to remove a judge from a case, that was huge. Yeah, if I know a bunch of you trial junkies, you see a lot of this trial stuff and you know they don't just remove a judge. That's big. Should national advocacy organizations intervene? The answer is no. No, it should not be this hard. Justice delayed is justice denied, and every day that LB had to fight was another day she couldn't heal.
Mhm.
Another day she was living with the trauma of what happened to her. Think about that, for 10 years. And the trauma of the legal system that just kept re-victimizing her. And
The
if they're
aliens are not coming, Fala.
and if therapists still around, we need to come up with a case so we can have a chat soon too. If you have a case, darling, let me know so we can have a talk. But let's get to our missing people, you guys, because that's important, and that's why we do this. We make sure that we get these people out there so that we can get them found. Yes, Emmy, we're sure.
Yeah, we're sure.
So remember to stay alert. You could save a life when you're out and about. Put that cell phone down, you guys. Look at faces when you're in the public, at the stores, public transit. Stay aware of your surroundings. Some leave voluntarily, but in the end, they end up in danger and they aren't able to just come home. Others never had the option to leave because we know human trafficking happens and missing persons cases happen everywhere. And a lot of human trafficking people are hidden in plain sight. We've got to stop using the word runaway. They're not runaways, especially with minors, because they cannot consent. I don't care if they get in a car with someone. That doesn't mean that they didn't think they were going to never come home again or that they were going to be used and abused. They're young and dumb. I mean, in our youths when we're supposed to make dumb mistakes, but not with creepers around. Yeah. So a lot of the victims will go unnoticed. So the person you see could be someone that's missing, someone's family member, you guys. Trust your instincts. If something feels hinky, call the authorities, call 911. Don't be afraid to do it. Just get it done, because don't plan on someone else doing it like, "Oh, well, she saw it too." You do it. And if it turns out it wasn't that person, great. But at least you don't have that on your conscience that you didn't call. So we're going to, make sure you report it, contact things to the police, and let's get started with our first person. Remember, if you're scared to call the police, our email is tips, the number 4, trialjunkiesunitedgmail.com. We'll send it in for you. Okay, this is Anthony John Roy
Beecham.
Beecham. Thank you. All of a sudden, I just drew a blank. We were discussing this beforehand, how I was going to pronounce this name, and then it showed up on the screen, and my brain went, yeah, okay. He's only 14, you guys. He has been missing since June 23rd from Fort Peck, Montana. He needs to be found. He has brown hair. His eyes are brown. He's 5'10". He's 140 pounds. And the BIA from Fort Peck is the one that you would need to call if you think you have seen him. So call 406-768-5565 or the Montana Missing Persons at 406-444-2800. Or if you're in another area and you see him, 911. The next person we have is, I think it's pronounced Elijah. It's spelled different, but Elijah Brown. He's 15. He's been missing since November 3rd. And the The location he's missing from is Chandler, Arizona. He's from the Gila River Indian community. He has brown hair, which is long and pretty. He's got brown eyes and he's 5'5" and weighs 170 pounds. He was last seen wearing a black t-shirt with red whiting, black or writing, and then a dark wash jeans and black tennis shoes. And that was on Arizona Avenue and Warner Road in Chandler. If you have any information, contact the Gila River Police Department at 520-562-4511 or the tip line at 520-562-7144 or, like I said, 911. Next, we have a set of twins. Emily and Yvette are 17, Hollowhorn, missing since December 13th from Pennington County, South Dakota. If you have any information, reach out to law enforcement immediately. Pennington County Sheriff Office, 605-394-4131. Yvette is, well, they're both 17. She has brown eyes, brown hair. She's 5'4", weighs 127 pounds, was last seen wearing a black jacket and blue pants. Emily has brown eyes and brown hair, and she's 5'6" and weighs 130 pounds. Last seen wearing a black jacket and gray sweatpants. So if you see them, please, please. And we also want to thank our stolen sisters, MMIWG, who puts out the posters. I think I said that wrong. Stolen Spirits. Fallon knows who they are. Yeah, thank you. Stolen Spirits, MMIWG. Boy, my brain's mush. Now, this next one is going to be difficult to see, guys, because they don't have a picture. They do not have a description for this child. And I am begging anybody that is in Fort Peck, Montana, if you know Josiah Walton, who's 14 years old and has been missing since February 8th. We're almost coming up on 1 year of this child missing. Please, if you know Josiah Walton or you have a picture, contact the authorities.
That's
Let's get
amazing.
this. Yes.
How can you go an entire year and not have a picture of him out there? Wow.
I don't know. The Fort Peck BIA is the phone number is 406-768-5565. I mean, we have no description. And I know that Braddy and her team, they do everything they can to get a description.
Yeah.
So that breaks my heart that there is just no information on this child. Josiah Walton. I urge everybody out there that's listening, take a picture of your loved ones, your children, at least every 6 months. Get a good picture, keep it in a folder. I pray you never have to use it, but if you do, you have it. Yeah, no school picture, no nothing, Semi. I know it breaks my heart. And you know, that's wrong. It's just wrong. But we don't know the circumstances, so
No.
there could be something. Someone could have been through a fire. We don't know. But with cell phones out there, please take a picture of your loved ones. Get the kids by themselves, each child, your teenager, your sister, take a picture of everyone. Put it in a folder. Be prepared just in case. Now we have Caitlin Kaganuk. She's 28. She's been missing since December 1st. Now she's missing from the Anchorage area near Glacier Street and Russian Jack Park. So exotic. I love those names. She was messaging a man who picked her up and lived in the area, but she hasn't been seen since. She's 5'2". She weighs 115 pounds. Her hair is black. Her eyes are brown. Contact the Anchorage police at dispatch 311 option 1 or 907-786-8900 press O to remain anonymous. The case number for this case is 25-37938. Let's hope we can get some of these people found. Kayla did advise me that Demenia has come home. She was our case from last week. And I think also Nevaeh Weiss has made it home. So, hey, we got to celebrate the wins when they get home. Now, with this young lady, her family actually believes that there are people out there who know where she is and aren't saying anything. And we know how we feel about that because silence is betrayal. If you know something, say something. And so I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you at the beginning. When are we going to uh when are we going to stand for the women, girls, boys, and men of the Native and Indigenous community? When are we going to demand the federal law enforcement agencies properly vet, train, and supervise their officers? When will we demand that the FTCA be reformed so that Native survivors aren't denied the same protections as other Americans? When will we demand that judges who repeatedly rule against Native interests be held accountable? When will we say enough? And the things that we're seeing with the federal agency of the BIA, just triple that and think about ICE, you know, and what those victims are going through
Mm.
because they're not being tracked. Nobody knows where they are. They're keeping them off lists. They're moving them around the country like they're playing a game of dominoes or Clue, you know, and they're keeping them from their attorneys. And we don't know the statistics because they're not keeping them of what crimes are happening to those people. And that's something to think about. Also, this is a picture of some of LB's artwork. She made this beautiful quilt and I wanted to show it.
That's
She was,
awesome.
isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
Her story is one of courage, you guys. She called for help. She got a predator. She was violated by someone who was supposed to protect her. She ended up having a child, but she fought for 10 years to hold the government accountable and she won. But she shouldn't have had to fight that hard. And countless other Native women haven't won. Who gave up? Who never came forward? Who died before they saw justice? More than 5,600 missing Native women and girls weren't even entered into the federal database. Murder is the third leading cause of death for young Native women. 1 in 3. 1 in 3. So look at your friend group and pick out 1 in 3 who would be assaulted. These aren't just statistics, you guys. These are sisters, their daughters, granddaughters, aunts, mothers, friends. These are human beings whose lives matter, whose voices matter, and whose issues of justice matter. Every predator and killer depends on our silence. Every one, every corrupt police officer depends on your silence. Every complicit system depends on our silence. Don't give it to them. If you see something, make sure you're saying something. And you might think, well, what can I do? Share the story. Please share it on social media. And this was after they won. This is a picture of the whole group of them that were working on this. I thought you'd like to see.
Goodness.
It was a good day.
Yeah.
It was a good day. 10 years, but it was a good day. So share this with your friends. Share it with the elected representatives. Hey, send them an email. Put us in there. Native women's voices need to be amplified, not silenced. Support your local Indigenous advocacy organizations. You have the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. You have the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, the Sovereign Bodies Institute, the Urban Indian Health Institute. Do your research on the groups, though. Indian Law Resource Center. Always check out your resources. Make sure Dr. McLeod told us how to do that. And then we have our own Lissa Yellowbird Chase. We have her Amazon gift wish list. I'm sorry that came out wrong, but it's pinned. Um, I made a post. It's also pinned to my Facebook page.
Yep, it's in the
She's- it-
description of of
sh-
of each um of each of our streams. So
and all she's asking for is things for her dogs who do the work with her, things that help her work go easier, SIM cards, paper, some treats for the boys because they work hard, leashes, things that make her job easier. Because trust me, I was talking to a woman today because I want to have her on a show eventually, and the moment I mentioned Lissa Yellowbird Chase, Lissa, Lissa's known in Indian country, everybody. Our very own Lissa Yellowbird Chase. So let's support her in any way that we can. And we need to fight. We need the support, you know. So let's make sure that we help these organizations. Or help your local, if you have a local organization that does MMIP work, make sure they're boots on the ground. If they're just taking pictures and saying they're doing, ask them where their money's going. Ask them what they're doing. Always check it out, you guys. Protect yourselves. So educate yourself. Learn about the MMIP and MMIW crisis. Learn about jurisdictional gaps that allow the violence to go unpunished in Indian country. Learn about the history of federal policies that have harmed our Native communities. We have cases like Olafat versus Squamish, 1978, which stripped the tribes of criminal jurisdiction over non-natives. Read about the impact of the Major Crimes Act and Public Law 285 point. Remember her name, LB. She's not a case number. She's not a legal precedent. She's a survivor. She's a mom. She's Northern Cheyenne woman who fought for 9 years and won. Remember her. Remember her courage. Because to me, that is remarkable of how she was able to stick and just kept plowing through to get it done. You're right, Cap. She's a fighter.
mhm.
Um, And Lissa will be the first one that will tell you when they're doing stuff in your local government and they're passing laws, look at them, see what changes, because there's some laws that were passed up in North Dakota that do not help the Indigenous community. They need to be outed. We will eventually talk on them. But tonight on Justice After Dark, we told a story that matters. We told a story that about one of the Indigenous and Native sisters who deserve to be remembered, to have her voice heard and to see justice done. Now, if you have any information about violence against our Native brothers and sisters, get in touch with the proper authorities. Reach out to us at Tips for Trial Junkies United. And anyone that needs a platform that has an experience and wants to share it, we're there for you. If you don't want to come on, that's fine. You do not have to. If you just need the support or you want your story told, but you don't want to have to tell it, we'll be there for you. Every Thursday on Justice After Dark, we dedicate it to MMIP. So join us Sunday for a cold case, trial updates, and more stories that need voices. And this Sunday, we're going to do a case that is a doozy, you guys. It's a doozy. But thank you for taking the time to be with us. If you appreciate what we do, make sure you hit the little thumb thing and, you know, share it and make comments when you can, because all that algorithm stuff that Doc has to worry about that I don't have a clue. It helps. It really does help. And we're growing. We're getting a community. And that's what we're about, is getting a community that wants to help and be of service. And that's what's important. So remember, somebody knows something. Someone always does. We love you guys. And we just want to be here for the people that need us and to share the stories. So remember, it's all something we can do by sometimes just listening to the stories and passing them on. Maybe we don't think we make a difference, but we do. So we love you. Silence is betrayal. We're going to see you on Sunday. Say goodnight, Doc.
Good night, Doc.
I love you, dude. Oh, it's time for dinner. So we'll see you guys on Sunday. If you need to get in touch with us, trialjunkiesunitedgmail.com if you want to share a case or anything. Ciao. You guys have a good one. And listen to the song we wrote.
She walks the road where the lights go out, where borders blur and help doesn't come around. On land they promised but never kept. Her name goes missing, her case goes left. They say call the law, but the law doesn't stay. Different badges, different rules, different ways. Paper lines say show us proof, but the proof is buried with the truth. They wrote the laws in rooms we weren't in, closed the doors and blamed our skin. Said justice waits, but it never lands when the crime ain't theirs to understand. Native women, native girls not protected in this world when the law steps back and the judges stall and the silence answers every call. If the courts won't fight, if the badges won't stand, if the system turns its face again, tell me now, who will stand for them? He crossed the line and he knew the game. Different blood, so no one's to blame. Hands tied by an old ruling. Let him walk free, let his story go cold. They say federal state, not ours today. Pass the file, pass the pain away, while the clock keeps counting the dead and gone. Another sister doesn't make it home. They call it law, but it doesn't defend. It bends for power, breaks for men. Justice delayed is justice denied, and she's been waiting all her life. Native women, native girls not protected in this world when the law steps back and the judges stall and the silence answers every call. If the courts won't fight, if the badges won't stand, if the system turns its face again, tell me now, who will stand for them? Who answers when the call gets dropped? Who counts the cases the system lost? Who protects her when the law says no? When the badge turns back, where does she go? This ain't broken, it was built this way. Native women, native girls still standing in a stolen world. If the law won't guard, if the courts won't see, then we'll be the voice they tried to bury. If the judges hide, if the badges run, we will stand till justice comes. And when the ones who swore to serve and save turn their backs across the line they gave ceremony, hold the line. If they won't protect her, we will this time. Not invisible, not expendable, not alone. We see you, we hear you, we stand. Voices soft and echoes linking down.